Hello, everyone, and welcome to the resume workshop today. This is a pre-recorded session, so again, the participation that I'm talking about here, not needed because this is a pre-recorded session. What we're going to be doing today is just going through the fine components of each slide to help you with your resume development for our Google Classroom. Again, after this presentation, there will be an assignment that will be given to you to construct and also submit a resume to our instructor team to get evaluated and also support you with some feedback. So again, welcome today for the resume workshop. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started today, just a couple email addresses just to keep you informed of how to get a hold of us as the Livonia AJC instructor team. As you can see, our email address is livonia.instructor.team@gmail.com. In that team, there's three of us. There's myself, Pete Anthony. My email address is panthony@udsi-solutions.com. We also have Jason and also Marissa with their email addresses below as well. So if at any point in time you need to get a hold of us, please go ahead and use that Livonia instructor team at gmail.com to get a hold of us. If there's anything specifically you have for us individually, our email addresses are there as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, just starting out with this resume workshop. Again, this is a interactive experience. If you follow us live, again, this is a pre-recorded. So with the questions, I am going to give you the answers to these, of course, and just kind of talk about them briefly. So first question I have that we like to throw out there for those that are in our sessions is on average, how many resumes are sent for a single job opening? And you might be shocked about this, but there is about 250 resumes on average sent for a single job opening. Now, the reason why we want everyone to understand that is because there is competition out there. And resume design, cover letter design, and interviewing are the three big elements that are going to help you receive an offer from the company that you apply to. So, the biggest component of this and why we want you to understand there's about 250 on average applications that's going to be sent along with yours is you have to design a resume to get noticed in 2020. If you do not, you are shooting yourself in the foot by you might be the most qualified person for the job that you're applying to, and you might be frustrated when you're saying, why am I not getting the call back? It is because most of the time, people are not designing resumes to get noticed. They're just throwing data on there and hoping that it will go through the elements and they will get picked up at some point. That's not the way it works in 2020. You have to design a resume to get noticed. And that's really the big premise of today's instruction is the have you gained some knowledge about how you can design a resume to get noticed. So we appreciate you joining today. So the objectives for this workshop, again, we want you to learn the 2020 resume standards when you submit your resume to us. Again, we would expect that you have some of these 2020 resume standards on there and represented to help you attain the job you really, really want. Second objectives for the workshop today in this presentation is have you learn how to develop a resume as a marketing tool in the hiring process that best represents you. Again, any document, again, that you're submitting to an employer for a job that you really, really want has to represent you in the way you want to be represented. And we're going to teach you some ins and outs how to do that today. And then we're going to talk about star statements, ladies and gentlemen. So if you are unfamiliar with star statements, this is a must on 2020 resumes. You need to effectively develop star statements to add value to your resume. Again, the days of just telling people what you do or did in your past employment experience doesn't really hold much water. Now you need to show how well you did that in your past work experience, because that's what people are looking for. You could go to work, punch in, punch out, 9 to 5, and just kind of go through the motions. That's not going to get you the job that you really want in the next time around. You need to convince an employer that you did your past job really, really well so that they will be interested to be hiring you. That's what you need to do, and you can do that by effectively developing STAR statements. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, another question we pose in our live sessions is, how many audiences do you write for when developing your resume? And what we mean by audiences, ladies and gentlemen, is how many set of eyes are going to be on your resume before you get called back for that interview? That is the big question. Turns out, ladies and gentlemen, 3. In 2020, the average resume is read by a recruiter, a hiring manager, and is sent through an applicant tracking system, an ATS system, that will read, review, dissect your resume to figure out if you are worthy of getting called back for that interview. And again, remember what I said back a couple slides ago, you might be the most competent and best fit for the position you're applying for, but if you do not create a resume that passes all 3 of these audiences, yeah, unfortunately, you're going to be left on the side, and someone else is going to be called in for an interview and get that opportunity before you ever will. And that's why it's so important, and that's why we're going through this today, ladies and gentlemen, how to effectively create a resume that's going to grab the attention of all 3 of these audiences to get you through those 3 stages and into the interview chair, which you deserve to be at. So that's very important to understand, because again, with this recruiter, hiring manager, and applicant tracking system, there are 3 different audiences. Each one of these audiences are looking for something completely different. And what I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, is step 1. When you send your resume in to a job, you use Indeed or Michigan Talent Connect or Dice or Monster, you send it through. First step it's going to come to is it's going to be screened by an applicant tracking system, an ATS system. And that's going to evaluate your resume for keywords to indicate the applicants understand the position. So you should be looking at that job description before you start your resume. Or if you have a current resume that you're just going to build off of, you need to have those keywords that are represented on that job description in your resume. So, as an applicant, you need to add keywords to your resume to pass that stage. If you do not add those keywords, the applicant tracking system is going to read your resume and say you are not qualified for this position because you don't understand what the position is, because you do not have keywords on that resume that represents you as a good applicant. So the first thing I would recommend for everyone is look at that job description, go through that job description, pull out keywords that are on that job description, and mirror that onto your resume. Because if you don't, ladies and gentlemen, the applicant tracking system is going to red flag it and not even send it to the next step, which is the human resource team. But if you do have those keywords, there's a greater percentage of probability that it will get sent to the next stage or the next step, which is to the human resource team. So once it gets to the human resource team, ladies and gentlemen, they are going to review that resume to evaluate your quantifiable accomplishments in your experience. Now, this is what I meant back when I talked about you can't just tell people what you did in your past job experiences. You need to prove and show how well you did it. Because again, when you apply for the job you really, really want, the employer is going to look at your past work experience or past schooling or past volunteer experience, and they're going to see what you did and how well you did it. So in this, when you're writing your resume, you have to think about writing effective statements, those STAR statements, that clarify and quantify your past performance. That's where those statements come into play. If you do not write those in your resume, it does hurt you because, again, you can't just tell me, hey, I provided great customer service at my past job. That is not a good statement to use. You need to quantify it. How do I know how well you performed in your last job? And that's something you really, really, really need to start thinking about when you construct your resumes in 2020. So, if you quantify your past performance, it's going to get sent over to the next stage, the next step, which is the hiring manager. If you do not quantify it, it's going to end right there for you. The human resource team is going to say, yeah, they're just kind of telling us, they're not really showing us, we're going to put it to the side or maybe in the recycling bin. And that's a place you do not want your resume to be. But if you do that, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be sent to the next person, which is the hiring manager. And this is really where you're in kind of the driver's seat at this point. So if you get to the step 3, you're in a good company at this stage. And it's going to go to the hiring manager, where they're going to review your resume, and they're going to kind of dissect it for those technical skills to evaluate the candidate and make a final decision to call you to set up an interview. So again, this is kind of putting the first and the second step together. So you're going to have those key skills, those key words, and you're going to be talking about how you can quantify them. So when it comes to the hiring manager, you really want those items, those data to stick out so it does get noticed and it drives interest from the hiring manager. So you need to look specifically at the skills they're looking for and add those on your resume. And again, that's kind of going along with the step 1, but you really need to quantify how well you can do those jobs. So you can't just put on your skills section in 2020, multitasker, customer service. Those aren't how you want to set your resume up in 2020. You need to go a little bit beyond that to pass all 3 of these stages to get that call back, to get yourself in that interview seat. So, just to kind of break it down a little bit for the importance and understanding of the of adding keywords in your resume. Typically, on average, the better your resume matches the job description requirements, that's looking at the job description now and mirroring it onto your resume, the higher you'll rank in the applicant tracking system and the better probability that you will be moved for an HR or to an HR review. If you do not add those keywords, again, the applicant tracking system is designed to locate those keywords to make sure that you understand what the job really is. And if you don't do that, yeah, you're really, really putting yourself at a disadvantage. So right off the bat, and just kind of emphasizing this again, is make sure before you write a resume in 2020, you are reading that job description carefully. I would even suggest printing it out, getting a highlighter out or a pen or a pencil, underlining things, circling things, highlighting things, those keywords, because again, if you don't add them on, you're not going to get to that second and third stage in 2020. So that's why we want to just emphasize the importance of using those keywords on your resume. So when we do a live session, we do a little activity here, and it's called Who Would You Call? So in this case, I'm just going to walk through the scenario with you. So again, we put kind of the hat, the HR hat on participants that are live with us. And the scenario we kind of roll out is, we have them act as though they're part of an HR committee, and they've been assigned to choose the next applicant for an upcoming interview. So this is real life, right? This is what happens when you send your resume and your application along. This is the same thing that happens. So we want to put them to understand it on the other side of the table. So we're just going to walk through it today. So remember, the HR committee role is to evaluate quantifiable accomplishments in the applicant's experience to move them to the hiring manager, who's going to dissect those technical skills and call you in. Now, in most cases, there might be a few job openings that they want to fill. In this application, there's only one applicant that we can bring to the interview. So we're going to just compare 2 resumes to kind of show you which one really stands out and which one may not get to the third step just based on how they've constructed it. So there's two candidates here. There's Andrew B that we're going to talk about, and also Connie D. They've applied for the same housekeeping position at a local hotel by the airport. So the directions that we give, again, are you're going to read the job description, read the two resumes that follow, and then decide on which person you would choose to call for an interview. You can only choose one. So that is the directions, and that's what we asked our participants that are live with us to do. So we're just going to walk through that scenario together, and I'm going to talk about kind of the reason why one stands out over the other, and we'll go from there. So looking at the job description again, so walking you through the job description and how you should read it as a candidate is you want to make sure you read the fine print of what they're looking for. So the job description, again, it's Hotel ABC. It's a 3-star hotel. The position is a housekeeper room attendant. So then there's going to be a short synopsis about what the job is. And in this case, it's responsible for thoroughly cleaning guest rooms, replenishing guest amenities, linens, and other articles in accordance with the Hotel ABC standards, as well as cleaning and stocking attendant carts and linen supply rooms. Now, so that's just a general overview of what you're going to be doing duty-wise for that job. Now, this is kind of the key area where you want to concentrate on when you're trying to pull out those key words. So that's the essential duties and responsibilities. So again, they talk about providing exceptional customer service to all hotel guests, making their stay as comfortable and accommodating as possible while achieving team and brand goals. So right there off that bullet point, if I was a candidate applying for this job, I would absolutely in my resume talk about customer service, because one of the biggest things, and actually the first thing they list on their job description, is the ability to provide exceptional customer service. So if you were applying to this position and you didn't talk about how you had exceptional customer service, yeah, guess what? You're probably not going to be moved to the top of the list. So you need to not only tell me that you have an exceptional customer service, but you need to show me how well you've done that in the past, and that's with those STAR statements. Perform quality assurance requirements for the department. So again, if there's any quality assurance that you have experience in, you should be talking about that in your resume. Talking about rotate linen changing in accordance with schedule, so maybe talking about scheduling, maybe talking about industrial linen changing machines or something along that nature. That's something you should have in your resume. Perform other general cleaning, vanity areas, coffee makers, etc. Again, if you have been in this industry before, you should talk about your cleaning standards. That would be something that I would put in the resume as well. Properly replace linen and guest amenities as needed, and then thoroughly understand and implement the brand service culture. So one of the things I would add in there to my resume is if you worked in a position and you really understood what the service culture was, the mission statement of your past employers, and you were like a trainer, or you were noted for understanding that brand and the service culture, or the culture of the mission statement, whatever it is, I would add that into your resume as well, because again, they're looking for someone that understands the business that you're in. Most people don't do that. So that's what I would add into my resume if I was developing this. And that's all right there. And this job description is a typical job description that you would see in most cases on the internet. Again, there's some qualification requirements, so education and experience. High school diploma or GED is preferred. So again, if you have a GED or high school diploma, I would add that onto my resume because it is preferred. So if they see that on your resume, yeah, there's a good chance that the ATS system is going to be looking for that to bump you to the next stage as well. So knowledge, skills, and abilities. So again, this is kind of reinforcing now what they're talking about with those core, the core understanding of what the job is. So good interpersonal skills, that might be something you want to add on your resume as well. Communication, probably a good idea to have that on your resume too. The ability to work in a fast-paced, high-energy, demanding work environment. If you have that experience, I would absolutely add it on your resume. Basic knowledge of hotel operations and ability to learn quickly. I would note that somewhere in your resume as well. Ability to work as a team player on all levels of associates. So again, bringing that team playing atmosphere into conceptually thinking about that. Yeah, you might want to put something about how you've been a great team player in your past work experience. And then skilled in operation of cleaning equipment. So again, if there's cleaning equipment that you are familiar with and have used in the past, I would list those on your resume because they're expecting you to know a little bit of the operation of cleaning equipment before you even walk in that door. Special requirements, prompt and regular attendance. So again, that doesn't need to be on your resume because that's expected. But again, I would look at that, and if you are in a circumstance that you cannot have regular attendance, again, you're probably not going to be staying on that job very long. Carry out reasonable requests by team leaders and managers and act as a team player with all levels of staff. Again, if you're not a team player, probably not a job for you to apply for because they're going to be expecting that from you. So again, this kind of goes into your personality, kind of, hey, these special requirements they're looking for, do I have those? And if you do, then talk about it. But if you don't, then you might want to steer away from this job. So that's a typical job description you're going to see for a position such as a room cleaner or room attendant. So the first thing we're going to do then is we're going to be dissecting these resumes. Now, I know on your screen it might be a little hard to read here. I apologize for that. If you can increase your screen, go ahead and do that. But the first candidate we're going to talk about is Andrew B, right? So Andrew B, and again, this little silhouette on the right-hand side is not going to be on the resume. So the resume actually cuts off after the words here. We just did that to designate who the person was on a live session. But again, he's got a summary. Talks about professional housekeeper, room attendant with 13-year history in cleaning and customer service, highly motivated cleaning service professional with exceptional time management skills and strong attention to detail and results. So right there, mirroring what you see from that job description is in that summary. So then he talks a little bit about his highlights. So again, now we're not just telling someone that he can do these things. Now we're showing them that he has really good qualifications and a really good track record of doing that. And that's through kind of the highlight section. So, with Andrew B, he was nominated for 2012 Recognition of Service Excellence Rose Award. He's worked at a 4-star rated hotel before. Awarded a certificate for highest score for room inspection for a 3-month period. Promoted to room inspector and new hire trainer. And then he trained in industry, laundry, washing, and drying. So again, relating that back to the job description. Now we're just not telling people what we did. Now we're showing them how well you did it. And then he bumped down to his professional experience, talks about the cleaning expertise, customer service, with a couple points there. And then his work history, right? So his work history talks about how he worked at Gold's Hotel as a senior housekeeper, education, he put that down as well. So, so this one here is a pretty good indication of gathering that information that they've showcased in the job description and actually putting that in a resume format. So if we take a look at Connie D's resume, so in this case, her objective is to obtain a housekeeping position in an organization that will utilize my experience in providing cleaning and sanitation services. So her highlights, again, extensive experience in housekeeping, knowledge of safety practices relating to housekeeping, proven record in observing and reporting any kind of security violations, comprehensive knowledge of maintaining necessary records and preparing necessary reports, familiar with the safe usage of different kinds of chemicals, and then awarded a certificate of achievement. So just right there, comparing the two, right? And I'm just going to go, talk about Andrew real quick. First and foremost, Andrew had a summary, right? Andrew talked a lot about what he's done in the past and how he can provide that same wealth of knowledge to the new companies applying for, with some really, really good highlights. Connie D's, she's got this objective, right? And let's be honest, this objective, it just sounds blah, right? There's nothing that really stands out here. She doesn't really put herself above the competition with that objective. Hey, I'm just looking for this housekeeping position to utilize my experience in providing cleaning and sanitation services. Doesn't really tell me how well she's done in the past. These highlights, if you remember the highlights we had from Andrew compared to Connie, Andrew's really stick out because they're very specific and they were measurable. So then we look at kind of professional experience with Connie. Again, kind of same thing as Andrew there with the customer service and cleaning expertise. And then she talks a little bit about her history and her past work experience and her education. The two differences between these two resumes, ladies and gentlemen, is really, really clear though. And hopefully it stuck out to you. But Andrew, with his summary and his highlights, 9 out of 10 times is going to be called for an interview before Connie D was. And again, I do want to stress that both these candidates are very qualified for the position. But in 2020, it's how you present yourself and how you write that document that's going to get you into the hiring manager's hand for them to review your resume to get called back for that interview. And as I mentioned before, 9 out of 10 times, Andrew is going to be called over Connie just by the way he's designed his resume. So again, that's why we went through that scenario there, because this is real life, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it usually comes down to. When you send your resume, you might be one of the 2 or 3 of the 5 or whatever it is, one of the 5 that's going to be called back for an interview. You want to make sure that there's no questions left for them to say, well, I'm not so sure about this, I'm not so sure about that. You want everything to be concrete, clear, and concise on a resume. So when they make that decision to call someone, you are the first person they think about because you have all that information in that document, that resume, to make you stand out above the rest of the competition. So, to make your resume stand out, you need to respond directly to the job description, as I mentioned earlier. Describe accomplishments, not responsibilities. Quantify your accomplishments. Use the summary section for unique professional details, not using that, not using the objective statement. Use that summary section to talk a little bit about your unique selling points, and then ignore irrelevant information on your document as well. Going back to Connie's resume, talked about reporting and things of that nature, didn't really fit the job description that you saw earlier. So there's irrelevant information that she had on her resume. That is a detractor. That raises red flags for people reading the resume, because the first question I'm going to ask myself is, why is she talking about this on a resume geared for cleaning, right? There's no reporting or anything she needs to do. Does she really understand the job at this point? And if I question that, you're going in the recycle bin, and that's not where you want your resume to be located. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, here's when we're going to start talking about the 2020 resume standards that should be on your resume to help you get past those three audiences and find yourself in the seat of the interview chair. So, you need to include appropriate information. Remember, mirror it against the job description. Has to be customized for each job. The day of, hey, I'm going to apply for 10 separate jobs and throw the same resume in for those 10 jobs does not work. If you're applying for a customer service job and a manufacturing job and a healthcare job and you use the same resume, yeah, it's not going to go anywhere. You know why? Because they're looking for 3 different skill sets in each one of those industries. And again, if you start combining those industries together, you're going to confuse the applicant tracking system, and the HR is going to pick up on it, and they're just going to say, you know what, they're just doing this resume, just threw it together, and they're not really telling us a whole lot. So you have to customize it for each job. You have to be strategic in the content that you add on, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then be applicant tracking system ready, and then again, that's just knowing the keywords that are in that job description and adding them on your resume in some fashion. Use bullet point to emphasize text. Please don't use block paragraphs that are 10 lines long. Data gets missed there. People do not spend time reading those paragraphs. They want short, concise statements. So use a bullet point system in 2020. And then it has to be professional and error-free. And again, when we're talking about professional and error-free, ladies and gentlemen, this is a non-negotiable. In 2020, with all the free applications, including if you do it on Word, again, you have Grammar Check on Word, you have Grammarly.com that you can send your resume through that will dissect and give you input and feedback on misspellings, context, use of words, language. Again, 2020 has to meet that standards. If those tools are free and right in your face and you don't want to use them, okay, well, guess what? You're not doing your due diligence of sending a perfect resume over to somewhere that you really want the job at. They're going to notice that. So if there's any errors and it's not professional, yeah, they're not even giving you two looks at your resume. So make sure that it's professional and error-free. So we're just going to quickly go through the sections in the resume and how they should look based on the 2020 standards. So formatting the header. So again, in 2020, your header should have your legal name, no nicknames. Again, if you like to be called something different than your legal name, that's something to talk about at the interview. But put your legal name on your resume. Email address. Professional and only used for job seeking. What we mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, is your email address has to be professional. Any of this cute stuff that you might have when you were 16 or 13 or whatever, when you developed and created your email account, yeah, back then I'm going to say you're probably less mature than you are now. You are submitting a professional document showing your best side ever, and if you use unprofessional email addresses, yeah, you're not doing yourself any favors. And you might be saying, hey, Pete, I've had the same email address for 10, 20 years. If it's not professional, ladies and gentlemen, in 2020, it does deter people to call you back. So if you think it's cute, probably not in a professional format, and I wouldn't use it on a resume at this point. So, and then we mean by only used for job seeking. Again, if you have one email that you're using for, friends and family and business and all that good stuff, yeah, if you are like me, you tend to get a lot of emails each day, maybe a couple hundred a day, depending on what you use it for. If you use your email when you go into a store like Target and they say, hey, sign up for this 20% discount, we just need your email address, and you give them your email address, Yeah, well, you know that Target's going to be sending you every sale under the sun until you cancel out of that agreement. So again, if you do that, you know there's going to be a ton of emails that come through. Don't get your professional emails caught up in your personal emails. Because again, if you miss one, there is a timestamp on that. If someone sends you something back that says, "Hey, we want to set an appointment up for an interview," and they send it on a Monday, and because you don't see it or you missed it and you don't get around to it until like Wednesday or Thursday, yeah, you've already missed your shot probably. And they probably put you to the back of the line because you didn't respond in a timely manner. So that's what we mean by just use your email for job seeking and not get it caught up in your personal email addresses as well. Um, Phone number. You only need to have one phone number. You don't need to label it. Again, the reason why is, again, 2020. Most people have a cell phone that they use, and most people are connected at the hip with their cell phone. They go with you when you're out of the house. They go with you when you go to the stores. They go with you when you go to work. They go with you when you go to school. They go with you pretty much everywhere. So I would suggest using a phone number that if a company was going to call you for an interview, you would have that phone between the hours of 8 in the morning to approximately 4 or 5 at night. Now, if you're at home and you have a phone line and you don't go anywhere, okay, you could use that phone number. But typically, I would suggest you using your cell phone number because that's the easiest way to get a hold of you between that time, because most of us are not just at home every day just sitting around. So with that being said, if you use your cell phone, make sure that you have room in your voicemail. If you've never gone and cleaned out your voicemail and a company calls you and they can't leave a voicemail because your mailbox is full, yeah, doesn't help you there because they can't leave a message and they're only give you one call. So you might want to clear that out as well. So, but you only need one phone number. You don't need to label it either as a cell phone or home phone. You just put the number in, like the example on this page here. Another one in 2020 is if you have a LinkedIn URL. If you are on LinkedIn and you use LinkedIn and you have good information on your LinkedIn page that you think is useful for a employer to see, I would add that on. Again, about 95% of all companies use some form of social media to do a check on their applicants. And out of that 95, about 97% use LinkedIn to see if you're if you're on there, and if you are, they want to see, what you look professionally on that social media platform. So if you have a LinkedIn URL, or if you're on LinkedIn, again, you're probably getting searched anyway. So I would add that LinkedIn URL onto your header there. And here are just kind of examples of how to format that header. I like the one on the bottom because it only takes 2 lines up. The one at the top takes a few lines. Again, like those examples we showed you with Andrew and Connie. Again, you want the majority of the space in your resume used for the text that's going to help you get the job. So I prefer the one on the bottom here. It's just straight up your names on top, email address, phone number, and then that LinkedIn address. That's as simple as it needs to look in 2020 on a resume. Not looking for something, real tech savvy there. Just a 2-liner. Just here's my contact information. Here's how to get a hold of me. So the next question that we pose to those that come through our workshop is, should you use an objective statement or should you use a professional summary statement? And I kind of answered this one a little bit earlier when we were talking about Andrew and Connie. So you should, in 2020, be using a professional summary statement. Generally, you will need to craft that professional summary statement. The only time that you would use an objective, and there's only really one exception to the rule here, is if you are making a huge career change, or well, no, I'm going to leave it there. If you're only making a huge career change, that's when you would use an objective. But beware, you need to write the objective statement correctly. For instance, there's two examples we have on this slide here. First one, the one that I would not recommend you using is something just generic like, hey, my objective is to obtain a position as a customer service representative at an innovative company that will utilize my skills and experience. That does not tell me anything about you and how well you can do your job if we would call on you. Another way to write that objective statement that's a little better is to leverage my 10 plus years of client-facing experience, very specific, quantifiable, public speaking skills, and expertise in public relations at a growing technological startup. So again, here's the difference about those. Second one has those keywords, talks about quantifiable, talks about selling points. That is a decent objective to use. If you are stating anything like the first one that we talked about, which is the bad example, it's not going to get you anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Even though you're going to use an objective, and again, the only exception that you can do this is if you have a huge career change. That's the only time really that's allowed to use an objective statement. You have to write one that does convey how well you can be as a professional going into your next position. So again, a couple things about this slide here. When can you use an objective statement? Really, the only time you can is making a huge career change. And if you do use it, make sure that you are putting things that are quantifiable in that objective statement, adding those key words, and then throwing some of that sales pitch in there as well to make sure that you're grabbing the attention of the reader. So hopefully that gets through what you'd be looking at when constructing that objective statement. So, based on that exception to the rule, let's focus a little bit on writing your summary. So yes, I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, crafting a summary does take some time, right? Because you got to do some really hard thinking on who you are as a professional and how you can convey yourself in the best possible way that represents you to an employer to get called for that interview. So, a couple of things that I would suggest before you write your summary is, can you describe your work style in 3 words? If you cannot, I strongly suggest you really thinking about what your work style is, because you need to have that represented when you write your resume and when you write that summary. Can you define what you are most proud of in your career? If you can't, I would identify something. Not only is this going to help you in your summary, but this is going to help you in your interview as well. But you need to find something you are most proud of in your career. And not only, talk about it, but also describe how well you did it and quantify it. Do you know the motivation behind why you're applying for the specific job? There has to be a motivation factor of why you're applying for the job. You should let someone know about that. Tell them why you really want this job. Again, a personal experience, anecdote, whatever it is, might be something that grabs someone's attention. But again, if you just say, well, I just applied for the job because that was the first one I came to on my job search list, yeah, that's not going to help anyone. What's the motivation behind why you're applying for a specific job? You should know that before you write your summary. Are you able to identify your skills that you feel are most confident? Yes, you should be able to identify your skills that you are confident with. And better yet, if you identify those skills and you see that they're on the job description, you absolutely have to add those on to your resume. And a matter of fact, it's a good selling point, so you can add it on to your summary. So these 4 questions right off the bat, ladies and gentlemen, even before you get your pen or pencil on the paper and start writing your summary, you should have these questions asked. You should have these questions answered, because this is going to help you formulate how you're going to write that summary. So, summary formatting. The most important information, including job description details, should be in that statement. Has to be written as a powerful statement, attention grabber that influences the reader to continue to explore your resume. Again, think of this, ladies and gentlemen, as kind of the appetizer, right? You go out to a real nice restaurant, you order an appetizer, the appetizer comes. If it's a really, really good appetizer, yeah, you're going to want to get something really good on the menu. If the appetizer comes and it's really not that great, yeah, it's going to change your opinion about what you're probably going to order, or even, stay at that restaurant, right? If it's horrible and it's not palatable, yeah, you might just walk out that restaurant. Same thing with your summary, right? The first thing that someone's going to read on your resume is going to be that summary. And if that summary is not powerful enough and it doesn't grab the attention of one of the audiences, that HR representative or that hiring manager, yeah, you might be placed in the recyclable bin. And that's, again, not where you want to be. So you need to come up with something that is attention grabbing and influences the reader to explore your resume a little bit more. So, formatting the summary. What can you bring to the position or company? That's something you need to answer, right? Why are you, you've already answered kind of the question with yourself is, why am I applying to this job? Now you have to answer the question is, what can you bring to the position or the company? Because the company is going to say, what can you do for me, right? When they read your resume. That's something that you should be thinking about when formatting your summary. You need to use action verbs. You need to put your words into an action. So action verbs are something you need to have on that summary statement. Action verbs, look them up, Google them. In Google search, just put action verbs to use on resumes. You're going to come up with thousands of action verbs that will be appropriate to add onto your summary. Have at least one quantifiable item represented. Remember, you have to not just tell people, you have to show them. And how do you show them? Quantify your experience. That's something you need to have on as well. Key strengths and skills or work style. Again, that's why we ask you, what is your work style? Understand it. What are your strengths? Know your strengths, know your skills. You need to talk about that as well. And then no FIDO talk. And what we mean by FIDO talk, ladies and gentlemen, is that's the typical talk that everyone uses that doesn't really, make a whole lot of sense. It's just generic talk, and it doesn't move the needle on someone being interested in reading more about you. So let's go through an example, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a summary that someone might use. So the summary states here that, there is, well, let's just read it. So the summary, loyal and dedicated individual with 5+ years of successful work experience in the banking industry, providing quality administrative support to senior level executives, experience in coordinating meetings, special events, presentation preparation, and staff training, excellent customer service skills, and a team player. Ladies and gentlemen, so let's think about this real quick, right? So let's talk about those FIDO words, right? Loyal and dedicated. First of all, what does loyal mean? What does dedicated mean? You're not telling me what it means here. You're just putting those words in. Those words mean about FIDO talk right there. Team player, again, just throwing one of those in there. Again, what does it mean to be a team player? Really think about those words and think about better ways you can describe that. So let's talk about some of the good things that we see in this summary. Quantifiable, right? We talked about having something quantifiable. Well, here's this. How about 5+ years? That's something we can quantify. So right off the bat, if this is maybe maybe an entry-level position or a step up above that, and you have 5+ years experience, yeah, that's something that's going to get noticed by the reader here. Now, we talk about successful work experience, so a couple key things: banking industry, quality administrative support, experience in coordinating meetings. Maybe these are some key words on there. Special events, presentation preparation, and staff training. So, and I apologize, my marker there is a little bit hard to see. I'm going to circle these a little bit better here for you. But these are the key words that we would be looking for. So right off the bat, couple good things in this this summary here. Besides those fighter words that we talked about, get rid of those. You can just put you can just start with individual with 5+ years of successful work experience. That's how you can start that off, right? You don't need to have loyal and dedicated, right? Because we don't know exactly what they're talking about there. So that's something that you wouldn't have on your resume, or I wouldn't recommend you have it on there. And this team player as well. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, if you did not notice it, one of the big ones, spelling and professionalism. I'm going to circle this one right off the bat. If you didn't catch that, ladies and gentlemen, or if you did, fantastic. But if you didn't, administrative. It is not spelled correctly. I want everyone to kind of realize that and see that, because even if, again, this is a pretty good summary here, but there's a spelling mistake. It's not professional. They obviously didn't run it through a spell check. This could be disastrous for this applicant right here. It's a pretty good one. This is a pretty good summary that I would have besides those couple of vital things that we saw, but it very disastrous if they would submit this with that spelling error there. So you do not want this error. Run it through, proof it, whatever you need to do. Can't have any errors on your resume. But this is just an example, ladies and gentlemen, of how your summary should be prepared and formatted and how it should read for the audience. So, again, moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about summary, we talked about your headline, or your heading, I'm sorry. Next thing is, what sections should you be added to your resume? And there's a ton of them, ladies and gentlemen. So when we have a live session, we just kind of ask everyone, hey, what would you add on to your resume? Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. The answer is choose accordingly. Not every one of these sections have to be added onto a resume. Remember, you are constructing a document, a professional resume that represents you in the best way. So you need to be very strategic, as I mentioned earlier, on what you need to add onto your resume to make you qualify for the position that you're applying for. So some of these might be something that you use, some might not be what you need on your resume. So I would go through and I would see and I would ask myself, writing a resume, which ones would I add on there? Work experience, of course, again, you're going to want that on there. Education, yep, if there's something specifically about education they're looking for, that would be on there. Skills, of course, you have that. Accomplishments, I would have that. Volunteer work, maybe, depending if you just did volunteer work and it had nothing to do with the job you're applying for, yeah, you might want to keep that one off. Awards, certifications, licenses, I would add those on there, but if you don't have any awards, certifications, or licenses, yeah, I wouldn't add that section on. Training and conferences attended. So if there was something you attended that was directly relatable to the job that you're applying for, yeah, you could add that on. But if you didn't go to any trainings or conferences, you would leave that off. Languages. Language is a big one, especially in 2020. Again, with businesses, they have multilingual positions available. If you speak more than one dialect, yeah, languages might be something you add on there that could help you get a job. But again, if you don't, or they're not looking for someone that has to speak different languages, yeah, again, you might leave that one off. But again, you have to choose very strategically and accordingly to which ones will best fit you to make you professional and have that representation, be noticed and attractable for the audiences that are reading your document. So again, the whole point of this is you don't need all these, but choose the ones that are going to help you, showcase yourself in the best light possible in a resume. So this comes down to kind of the last part of this. Well, not the last part. There's two more parts of this presentation here, but the big one we're going to talk about here, ladies and gentlemen, is the formats. Which one is the best? So, believe it or not, there are three types of formats you can use to also get your points across in the best light possible. Because each one of these formats of the resume is geared depending on where you are in your job search or your job, your career. Yeah, each one of them can represent some highlights that you might not be able to get in just a typical resume that you might have saw online. And what I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, is, which one are you using? First of all, the question is, which one are you using? So, because what I want to do is a little compare and contrasting right now. So, if you're using a chronological resume, cool. At this point, I would say pull it out because I want to kind of compare and contrast what the benefits are of the other types of resume. If you're using a functional resume, cool. Pull that one out as well. Combination, if you're using that, okay. If you're not sure which one you're using, not a problem either. We're going to talk about these. So what I'd ask you at this point is to take out your resume and follow along with us while we describe the benefits of using each one of these formats to help you best represent yourself to an employer. So, a chronological resume, ladies and gentlemen, can help you show recruiters that you have the most recent work experience that is relevant to their needs. Shows promotions and upward career mobility, and it demonstrates that you've had a traditional career path without gaps or terminations. So if you fit in that, great. This might be a resume that you could use to represent yourself when writing a resume to the employer. Basic features of the chronological, it's the standard resume format. So in most cases, you've probably seen this format either online, if you went online to kind of look at how to write a resume. This is the most common one that's used in those because it's the most standard resume format. Professional experiences take up most of the resume and are listed in reverse chronological order. So again, those experiences, your jobs you've had in the past, take up most of the resume because that's where you're going to put most of your data in and talk about, hey, how you went from job to job. You showed a little bit of upward mobility, maybe some promotions. I had a typical career path. That's how that feature presents itself on that format. So when should you use it? Again, I would recommend you using it if you're a traditional job seeker. You don't have a whole lot of employment gaps. You're looking for work in the same industry or same field. That would be a resume I would recommend you using. You can use it if you're an entry job seeker. If you're applying for your first professional position, yeah, you could use some things in school, maybe some volunteer work that also could be represented chronologically to help you get that job as well. So if you're wondering, hey, should I use it? These two reasons here are some pretty good reasons when you should use a chronological format. So, how would you order the sections in your chronological resume format? So remember, I said you don't need all of the ones that we talked about, but this is the traditional applicant. So if you're a traditional applicant, the way your resume should be formatted is you should have your contact information. You should have that heading up top. Again, using that resume summary we talked about, using that professional experience, that's adding your past job experiences. If you have certifications, if they're relevant, you can add those on. Add that skill set. You're going to need those skills to get past that applicant tracking system. And then other sections that are relevant, like your volunteer work or awards would be something I would add on to your resume. If you're an entry-level applicant, again, same kind of thing. Your contact information is going to be at the top. But remember, you're not making a huge career change, but you're making a change to the career to the workforce. So that, in its sense, is a huge career move. So in this scenario, you could use either a summary or that objective statement we talked about. That would be one of the exceptions to the rule that you could use it here. You can also talk about, or you should talk about your education, your experience, extracurriculars, and then other sections that are relevant, including hobbies and interests that apply to the job. So if you're a traditional applicant, this is the way I would suggest you formatting. If you are entry level applicants, again, this is the way I would suggest you formatting it as well. So the next one, ladies and gentlemen, is talking about the functional resume. So the functional resume will help you present your relevant skills and abilities, right? So we're focusing now not necessarily on the work experience, but your relevant skills and abilities you're bringing to the table for the job you're applying to. This could demonstrate your readiness to perform the job. It also helps to remove focus from your work history. So if you do have some gaps in employment or some high turnover, again, this can kind of bury and remove the focus from that and put the focus on, hey, here's the skills and abilities I've learned from those jobs, and this is what I'm bringing to the table. So, basic features, this is a non-standard resume format, again, and the skills section takes up most of the resume. The big difference between this and the chronological, your experience took up most of the resume. In this case, with the functional, the skills section is going to take up most of the resume. So when should you use it? Career changes, right? Job seekers with transferable skills looking to enter a new field or new industry. I think this is a very good one to use because, again, you're not going to use a chronological format talking about all the customer service experience when you want to go into manufacturing. But what did you learn from that customer service? What skills and abilities do you have that you can use? That should be the focus on your resume. Anyone with employment gaps. Again, job seekers have taken extensive time off work. If you have employment gaps, yeah, just like it says up above, this can kind of bury those employment gaps, and it focuses on your skills and abilities, not when you worked and who you worked for. So, how would you format this resume? This resume, again, you have your contact information up top. You could use a summary or objective. Remember, if you're making a career or industry change, you would use that objective, not use that summary. Work experience is going to be kind of the next part of that field, education, skills, and other relevant information. So in this one, the skills section, though, is going to be your biggest section that you're going to focus on for that resume format. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, there's a final resume that you can use. That's the combination resume. And this can help you market your professional skill set while also emphasizing your work history. So again, it's kind of the best of both worlds, right? You're going to talk a little bit about the skill set and also emphasize your work history. You can focus on transferable skills you are considering with a career change. And then you can use this to help demonstrate your mastery of the skills and duties you've obtained during a long career. So again, this one would be kind of really good use for at least a mid-level to upper level position. Basic features, again, this is a hybrid, both a combination of both the other two formats. And the professional experience and skill section take up equal amount of space. So again, you're talking a lot about the skills, but also where you obtain those skills and your work history. So they take up basically equal amount of space on your resume. So when should you use this one? This should be for mid-level and senior level job seekers. Individuals with substantial industry experience, this would be a good one to use. And then highly skilled job seekers, individuals with advanced technological skill set. So that's when you would use this one. Does this one apply to everyone? No, it does not. This is kind of a specialty case here. But again, I just want to give all options out there for those that are online with us today, saying, hey, which one can I use? I want to give all three of those examples for you so you can make your determination what's the best one for you to use. And again, how would you format this, ladies and gentlemen? Again, your contact information up top. You would use a summary in this case. You would not use objective because it's in the same industry. So you would talk a lot about that in your summary. Work experience and accomplishments should be right there as well. Associations, can't even talk, sorry. Associations and certificates, certifications, if relevant, yeah, you should add those on there. Education, skills, and other relevant sections would be appropriate for this resume to use. And that's a recommended order on how to put those on your resume. So, what is the best for me, ladies and gentlemen? We went through a really deep dive there into which resume is best for you. And just to kind of summarize it here, the chronological, it's best if you're applying to a job in your current field or industry. Your work experience and skill set are intimately linked together. You're an entry-level candidate or a student with some work experience, you can use it there. A functional, again, best if you want to change your career. You have a large work gaps that you want to cover up, and you're applying to a job where the skill requirements are emphasized more than work experience. That would be a good time to use that functional format. The combination best to use if you're a mid-career professional or higher. You're an expert in your field and you're applying to a job that requires a lot of technical skills and experience. So that's kind of just boiling it down to when to use those resumes. So again, I throw on to you the question, you thinking this and knowing what each one of those format represents, what is the best format for you now? It could be different from the one you currently have, and that's okay. That's okay. But I wanted you all to know there are options out there and you can change it. So a couple of questions here. I'm just going to quickly go through these. Is it recommended that you use chronological format if you frequently change jobs? No, you would not use that. Is it recommended that you use a functional format if you lack relevant or transferable skills? No, because that's the focus of the skills. Is it recommended to use a combination resume if you lack relevant qualifications and skill set for the role? No, you would not, because again, that's what we use that resume for, to emphasize that. So some quick questions there, but again, they just reinforce what we talked about in the last couple slides. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a handout that we're going to provide in the coursework for you of how to pick the best format. We actually have a really good guide here where it goes through questions of where you are as a job seeker. Are you entry level? Are you experienced? And asking you certain questions about where you are in your job or your career and which one at the end is a good resume format to use based on how you answer those questions. So we will provide this to you. Again, you can stop this slideshow and kind of read through these two to figure out which one, after you answer those questions, which is the best one for you to use. But this is really helpful. We've gotten great feedback from customers that have used this before. All right, so last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into the STAR statements. So these are kind of the whipped cream or the gravy or whatever you want to call it on top of your resume, right? This is what's going to make your resume really, really, really shine for those reading it. So STAR statements, if you're not familiar with it, it's an acronym. Stands for situation, task, action, results, right? That's what STAR stands for. That's how to write effective statements, and we're going to teach you how to do that right now. So STAR statements are used to create a great resume. Your goal should be to ensure that your resume captures the attention from the reader and provides insight as to how your experience and talents can benefit their company. So again, using the STAR statements can create a great resume by using this format. And the reason why is because it does capture attention, it does pull out all the information they're looking for, and then again, you're going to come up with a positive action and result from how you did that skill or how you did that duty. That's going to tell a really nice story about what you can do for the company you're applying for. So using the STAR statements create a great resume, the STAR method can help you effectively convey your value as a potential employee by providing a reliable format for showcasing your abilities, just what I said in the last slide. So there's 4 components to the STAR in resumes, ladies and gentlemen. So the situation. So you need to be able to find a role that you filled, including the position and core responsibilities that you did in the past. Then you have to define a task. You need to select a required skill from the job posting and describe it in your past work experience. Remember, it has to be relatable to that job description. So you're going to pull a skill that you see on the job description, talk about the skill that you know how to do really well and how you perform that skill in your past job. That's where we're getting down to the third one. You need to provide details about the actions you took to deal with the role that you were in. And then you have to give a result. And that's you have to document the actual positive quantifiable results you achieved to add value to your past company. So that's how, in a nutshell, how that would work. Now, let's break it down a little bit, right? So here's an example of the STAR statement. So defining the role and responsibility. So you have to think about and kind of ask your question, what did I do? And what was my job duties? What was my role in my past work? So in this case, it was, with our example, is you served as the office manager for a warehouse and was responsible for managing shipments, maintaining inventories, and tracking district sales. So you need to know, even before you start writing these STAR statements, what the situation was. What was the role and responsibilities you had in your past work experience? Think about it. Write it down. Know exactly what your job responsibilities were, because that's going to help you define and write the rest of this STAR statement. So with that office manager position that we're talking about, now let's discuss a relatable skill. So let's say in the job description they talk about inventory control. That's one of the things that they're looking for in this job that they want you to do. So then you're going to have to think about, hey, what did I do with inventory control? Well, you can talk about when I was hired, the company lacked a cohesive system for inventory control, which resulted in delayed order fulfillment and a high volume of order cancellation. So again, think about that skill, that job duty, that keyword, and think about, hey, when I was in this role, how did I have to perform this role? That's what you need to think about. So then we talk about the action. So what did you do in the role to help that job, to help that keyword, to help that skill? So in this, the action was, I led a team effort to redesign our inventory control system. So again, still focused on the inventory control system, implementing new quality controls, improved network integration, and a revised training program for new hires. That's what they did. That was the action in that role to tackle that keyword that they're focusing on, which is inventory control. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, it's now let's talk about the positive result by that action that they took. So how did your action benefit the company? So in this an example is within 4 months, the company's online fulfillment records soared from 61 to 98%, which is incredible. And we enjoyed an 82% decline in cancellation orders, which is awesome. And by year's end, profits rose by 23%. That's putting it in a really nice, elegant way of what the result was. So we broke all the STAR down in how you should have them representative when talking about how you can formulate that statement. Now there's a lot of writing here, right? So we need to really compress this into a nice short statement based on what we've located from our role, the task, the action we used on that task, and the result. So the statement you would have, ladies and gentlemen, is something like this. So bringing it all together, using the details uncovered by the STAR method that we just did on that last slide, you can add a bullet point like this that just encapsulates everything in one short statement, which is solved inventory management deficit by redesigning inventory control system, quality controls, network integration, and training. Online order fulfillment improved by 45%, profits increased by 23%, and cancellation orders decreased by 82%. Again, everything is in there on that STAR statement model into a nice, concise statement. And again, we're now not telling someone how well, they're not just saying, hey, I know quality control. Now they're showing us how well they did quality control in the job they had before. And that's the power behind these STAR statements. That's why you need to know how to write them in 2020, because this brings out, again, the gravy. This brings out the whipped cream on your resume to get them really, really excited about you as a candidate, because they're going to know right off the bat. They're going to answer their own questions. Well, what did they do in their last job? Well, bam, here it is. This is what they did in their last job to make themselves a really, really, really good candidate for the job they're applying for today. So why using STAR works on resumes? Using the STAR method creates a much more compelling resume entry and answers a hiring manager's questions before you even sat down for an interview, right? I just mentioned that in the last slide. Again, how, when when they ask you that question in the interview, tell me about a time you had to increase something or whatever, you can pull that out of your resume and talk about it. They're answering their own questions by you giving it to them right on your resume by using that STAR statement. It also provides an easy to use format by addressing the critical question: how can you provide real value to my company? And that's the biggest thing, ladies and gentlemen. At the end of the day, you get hired on base what your return on investment is, what they think they're going to get out of you as a candidate and someone that's going to work for them. If they don't think you're going to provide real value, they tend to look to the next person. But if they think that you're going to provide real value to their company or the position, that's when there's something to be said about you as an individual and you writing those STAR statements, because you're answering that critical question. And you don't need every bullet point to follow this format, but you should have at least one or two of your best examples from each job that will really help you shine. So again, not every bullet point you use in your resume has to be a STAR, but you should have at least one or two in each one of your jobs or each one of your skill sets, what you're talking about. If you're using a functional resume, you need to have at least some STAR method formatted bullet points on your resume, because they're the ones that are going to really pop out and shine for the reader. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now finishing up with this. So a couple things to think about when you are writing your resume. So pitfalls of resumes, right? Poor formatting. If you do not format your resume appropriately, and that's why we went through the 3 formatting of which resumes to use and what to have on those resumes. If you just throw data on a resume and just hope to dear God that it's going to get read by someone, that's not effective in 2020. You really need to have something that shines. You need to have it formatted appropriately. Inappropriate length. In 2020, you can get most of your information on a 1-page resume by doing the proper formatting, using the right resume style. Inappropriate length. Again, if you just start throwing things on there because, more is better, that's not necessarily true. It's the correct information. That's what we want on your resume. Very concise, straight to the point. Show me that you're the best candidate out there, so I call you for an interview. That's what we want to have on your resume. So 1 page is what we're looking for. If you have a 2-pager, I would really, really have you think about what is on there. What can you get rid of that really is a polished, professional document that you can give to an employer. Spelling and grammatical errors and incorrect verb tense, right? I mentioned all those things you can use, the spell check, the Grammarly.com. You need to be able to use that. You should use it. If you don't use it, you're really putting yourself at risk for not getting to the next stage, because if there's any grammatical or spelling errors or anything like that, that's not good to have, especially in 2020 when all these tools are free and at a touch of a button on a computer to use. And HR knows that. Professionals know that. And you're just, again, I hate to use the word, but I'm going to use it. You're lazy if you don't do it. And again, if you're showing that you're lazy and trying to get a job, think of that when you get the job. if you're given that opportunity, no one's going to hire someone they consider lazy because they didn't spend time to spell check their resume. Lack of focus. Again, if you are in the situation where you just think one resume is going to do the trick for 10 jobs you're applying for, it doesn't have focus and it's not going to be read very well by the applicant tracking system. HR is going to eat it up. It's just not going to work out for you. Including non-relevant data. Again, that goes back to the inappropriate length. Use relevant data. Use the data just strictly about how you are the best candidate for the job you're applying for. Casual language, the photo talk, we talked about that. You can't use that casual language. You have to back everything up that you have on your resume. So don't use that photo talk. Redundancy of information. What do I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen? If you had the same industry, the 3 jobs or the same type of jobs, and you just cut and paste those bullet points of what you did on those jobs into the other 2 jobs, does not work. Every job you have to put something that you did differently or learn differently. So do not cut and paste what you did in other jobs to other jobs. It does not work. So redundancy information, do not do that. Come up with something new and different. Including references on a resume. Again, I don't know why we still see this on resumes. You should have a reference page. References do not go on resumes. So to recap, ladies and gentlemen, remember, resume is a tool that represents you as being qualified for a position. The purpose of the resume is to gain an interview, right? You don't necessarily get hired based on your resume. You get offered the spot and the interview chair to really shine and then convince the interviewer that you're the best fit for the position. But that all starts with the unlocking that door, which is the resume. Resume must be professional and error-free, customized for each job opening, and reviewed before submitting, which means spell check it, grammar check it, all that good stuff. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, so proofreading services are available for us. Again, part of your assignment that is going to be after you finish this recording here is to submit a resume to us to go over where we could proofread it and help you prepare a document that is fantastic. So when you apply for that next job, there's no questions that you're going to have about yourself when submitting your resume. But you'll get that link where to send that in a little bit. But again, we can help you out with spelling and grammar, punctuation and capitalization, syntax style and consistency, formatting, readability, and sentence structure. We'll do all that with you once you submit your resume over to us. Now, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, our expectations when you send that resume to us is you're applying some of the knowledge that you learned today into your resume. One thing to say is we are not going to write the resume for you. We're going to provide you feedback of how you can improve it. So yeah, just you're going to get a link to where to send that, and you're going to send it over as part of this session. So again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I know we're not on a live session, so I know there's no questions out there right now. But if you have some questions about the content of this session, you can reach out to us at livonia.instructors.team@gmail.com. Again, my name is Pete Anthony. Thanks for hanging with me today. Learn a little bit about resumes, and you'll get that link shortly of where to send your resume to us. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and have a great day.